Everyone, thanks for being here and welcome to our August 7th, 2024 Board of Douglas County Commissioners 5:30 business meeting. There are paper copies of the agenda available for those who are here in person, and then the full packet is available online on our website. For this evening, we did have a work session earlier. If you've missed that, you feel free to catch that online also. That was our overview of our Consolidated Fire District 1 budget and the capital improvement plan for Douglas County. Those did not have a vote at that time. That will come back to us in the future at probably August 28th. So this evening, we will have our consent agenda, followed by general public comment. We welcome general public comment for addressing issues not on today's agenda, but otherwise related to county business. Given our limited time and the need to have an orderly and efficient meeting, we will apply certain rules regarding public comment. A recent federal court decision has provided additional clarity regarding standards for public comment, and we have updated our practices accordingly. We do our best to enforce these rules consistently and without regard to the point of view expressed by the speaker. Each speaker will be limited to a total of 3 minutes of speaking time. However, we do always accept public comment of any length in writing, especially by email. Individual speakers may not donate unused time to other speakers. All comments must address topics within the jurisdiction of the County Commission. We will also maintain the decorum of our meeting. Therefore, we prohibit public comments that are threatening, aggressively hostile, or belligerent, fighting words, slander, or speech that invades the privacy of individuals, unreasonably loud, disruptive, or repetitive, or that interrupt or substantially interfere with the board's ability to conduct county business. We do reserve the right to mute or remove any speaker who violates these public comment rules. At that time, we'd ask for your full name and address for our meeting minutes and to address your comments up to us at the Commission. Please know that comments received by the Commission during our meetings do not necessarily represent the views of Douglas County government, but that we value the input. We don't usually respond to general public comment on the spot, but if you leave your contact information with county staff, we'll try and get specific questions answered. After general public comment, we move to our regular agenda. And for each item there, we will hear from staff or an applicant, followed by questions from the Commission, and then open that item up for public comment relative to that item. Once public comment is closed, we bring the item back to the Commission for further discussion and a vote. Lastly, a recording of this meeting will be available on the county's YouTube page and website. And as is always our practice, we ask first, Commissioners, are there any items you'd like to pull from the consent agenda, of which we have one?
No.
And is there any member of the public who'd like to pull our consent agenda item for further discussion? 1.1. Commissioners, that is the sum total of our consent agenda. So we will start with 1.1. Do Commissioners have any questions on the accounts payable? Okay, would you like to come up and give public comment?
So I wanted to ask again, I asked last week if you guys had actually reviewed the accounts payable. And Ms. Reed, I asked last week if anybody had reviewed that, because in the week prior, there was evidence in the meeting that Mr. Kelly had not actually reviewed the item for the sheriff, talking about him just going to go ahead and do his own bid process and everything. And that hadn't even really been reviewed because there were a quote made there that something wasn't in the packet, or he thought something should be in the packet that actually was. So my question for you guys is, do you actually review the accounts payable before you sign off on them? Do you actually physically review the accounts payable? I mean, I don't want to stand up here for the whole 3 minutes. I'd like them to just acknowledge that they actually do or do not actually review those documents before they sign off on them.
Michael, if your public comment is over, we can continue to have conversation about the meeting or about this agenda item if nobody else has public comment.
Actually, my speech, my First Amendment actually includes me standing here in silence. So we're going to take up that full 3 minutes if you guys don't want to answer. I don't want to do that, but it's meaningless for you guys to not answer a simple question like that. Do you actually review the accounts payable before you sign off on them? Do you know if they do? See, nobody wants to answer. We've seen evidence that it doesn't get reviewed, that expenses here don't get reviewed. Nothing? You gonna send me an email afterwards, Patrick? letting me know that things do get reviewed? Shannon, am I going to get an email afterwards? So you can speak to tell me that I can leave the podium before I shouldn't, but you can't tell me if I'm going to get an email afterwards? You don't like me coming in here cussed and raising hell. I haven't cussed or raised hell, just asking a simple question. Do you actually review the accounts payable? But I could come in and cuss and raise hell and make a good video, though. Do you guys actually review the accounts payable? I've seen evidence that you don't. I'll let you have that 30 seconds.
Is there anyone else who'd like to give public comment on this item? Seeing none in the room, Sarah, do you have anyone online? Okay. Closing public comment, I would bring it back to the commission and consider a motion.
Motion to approve consent agenda item 1.1, approval of accounts payable.
Second, and now that public comment is over, I will answer your question directly and say, yes, we have reviewed accounts payable, and that is why I make a motion or support a motion to review it, to approve it. Otherwise, I wouldn't support a motion. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And that brings us to general public comment. Is there anyone in the room who would like to give general public comment today? Come on up.
My name is Dr. Justin Spees. My sign here says, "Women have more balls than Patrick too." I have a serious question for you guys I'd like you to answer. Back on May 1st, I came in here and I was holding this exact same sign that said, "Women have more balls than Patrick too." And Karen, you stopped me and you said, "I'm afraid we're not going to allow the sign." And I said, "What's wrong with the sign?" And you turned my mic off for a sign. And you immediately directed staff to contact the sheriff to come have me removed. And I was arrested. I went over and I stood over there with the sign and was arrested for that. And so why am I allowed to have this sign right now here today? Is that an admission of your guilt that you're not stopping me? Is that an admission of your guilt for stopping me before? For standing over there with my sign? See, look, watch. See, come stand over here. So right here, my sign was on the camera there. See, nothing. You guys aren't directing anybody to arrest me or anything. Why is that? What's different? It's a serious question. I'd like an answer to it. How am I supposed to know each meeting coming in what I can and can't say? You know, that's the thing about free speech, is it doesn't need guide rails and guardrails from you assholes. And you know that. That's why I'm able to stand here right now. But on May 1st, I was arrested for it. A couple meetings before that, I said women have more balls than Patrick too. Both Shannon Reed and Karen Wiley directed staff, 2 separate meetings, directed Sarah Plinsky to turn my mic off for saying that. But as you can see here today, mic is still on. Why? Why, Patrick? Why, Patrick? So you try your best not to engage in viewpoint discrimination while engaging in viewpoint discrimination with me, specifically. Because I'm not allowed to say women have more balls than Patrick too in April and May. But here we are in August, and freely say it. It's part of the lawsuit, that whole April meetings being silenced and the May 1st arrest, all part of the lawsuit, all got added to it. It's really interesting that the DA declined to press charges against me for disrupting a meeting that you guys had me arrested for. Remember, you said I was disrupting a meeting, but I just stood over there right now. I was close to staff. Didn't stop me.
Time. Is there anyone else who would like to give public comment?
I like that I can hold this up here because that makes it a little easier. Thanks. So that viewpoint discrimination that he was just talking about, that's why I back him up now, in here especially. And the reason that you let him do it now is because you know that you can't silence people. And for everybody's in the room, you guys need to understand the First Amendment is not for speech that's pleasant that everybody enjoys. The First Amendment was specifically written for speech that people don't like and that people want to shut down. That's why our founding fathers put that amendment in there, because they themselves had been shut down and silenced and told they couldn't protest against their government. But you guys would rather push those boundaries. And what's happened as a result of that arrest, Miss Willie, and it's funny, you were at the CPRB, I guess wouldn't even call it that, the police trust building exercise. It seems like you would associate more with LPD than you do the Sheriff's Department, because you've put them in a ringer by ordering them to be acting on your behalf to arrest Justin that time. And that's going to cost the county money, some of that $168 million that's in the bank. I personally hope he gets a good chunk of it, because you guys need to learn this lesson. The First Amendment was written for speech that you find distasteful, speech that you find uncomfortable, speech that makes you want to push the button to mute us. You guys should have learned this in school. You should have learned it in your orientation to the commission when you learned about COMA rules. But apparently that's a problem here. I do appreciate the fact that this body has chosen to stop the escalation with us, unlike the city. You guys have finally learned just to, for the most part, sit there and be quiet and listen. Unfortunately, the city keeps trying to push their will. One of you that might want to talk to Bart Littlejohn about that and see if he wants to avoid a city lawsuit coming up. But that's about the only thing I appreciate about this body. You guys got our money in the bank. You've put us in the kitty for lawsuits that are going to cost that money. And it's all about your feelings. It's always been about your feelings. That's difficult.
Is there anyone else who'd like to give public comment? Seeing none, do we have anyone online, Sarah? Okay, that will close general public comment and bring it back to our regular agenda. This is an administration item based on the agreement between KDOT and City of Lawrence and Douglas County. Chad, are you going to walk us through this?
Yeah, I can do that. So KDOT is building a large project, 2 phases of a large project in the next 4 or 5 years to expand the South Lawrence Traffic Way. We've been working with them in the design process for, since about 2016 now. And along the way, there have been multiple points where there are local coordination items where we want to, see them do work on our roads related to the project. And so the real sort of substantive piece of this item for the County Commission is the $320,000 that we are agreeing to pay KDOT. And so within the KDOT construction plans, they're including relocating a road that we maintain and also building a cul-de-sac. And I can tell you where those are. There's a stretch of road inside the current curve of the SLT that's called E902 Road. And it was an area that's remained rural, although it's sort of wrapped into the city by the traffic way. And interestingly, that road was the original construction haul route for the Clinton Dam construction. And when KDOT came through and put the SLT in and cut that curve through there, they, cut the road and basically made it a dead end and left it in a state where there's actually 2 roads sort of side by side. It's very strange. And so we're cleaning that up. We're going to realign that road with a new paved section. The gravel section is going to get a cul-de-sac turnaround that the township will be able to use when they get down there with a big truck. And then associated with that, the rec path for the city of Lawrence runs through there. So KDOT's having to relocate that. But the portion of that particular work that they've assigned to us, they estimated to be $275,000. That's most of the $320,000 in this agreement. The other piece is what you might have called the Cassold cut-through that was closed in 2017. That's also long ago known as Browns Grove Road. And KDOT closed that road. It's where Lawrence Landscape has their facilities. And that will be permanently closed. And as part of that, we need to put cul-de-sac bulbs on the end of that road for people to turn around. Originally, we were going to do on both sides of the highway, but on the north side, we have since agreed with the city of Lawrence that they will take the bridge that serves that area. They've purchased ground in that area to eliminate the need for the bridge and the need for a cul-de-sac. And so this $45,000 in this agreement for that cul-de-sac is just the cul-de-sac on the south side of the highway. And so this document's pretty standard. The city's on the hook for a lot more. They're like $6 million in this agreement, and that's for a lot of local road work, Wakarusa Drive going north. And so this is a three-party agreement. It's pretty standard stuff for KDOT, and it, as I said, there's a lot of, several years of design decisions going behind this. And then the next item that we'll talk about is the MOU, which is sort of related, but do you have any questions on the agreement?
I don't really have questions on the agreement. I think that was all pretty straightforward and clear. And of course, this is my kind of first look at some of the right-of-ways and changes that are being proposed, just because much of that happened before I was on the commission. I did have one question that I think might be relevant, and the others are probably more for KDOT than for you, and this might be also. But the space that's left on the west side of K10 as it's swinging out further to the west, and abandoning the right of way of where KDOT is now, is that a space that KDOT is planning to maintain, or is that going to come back to the city of Lawrence or the county? Who will own? It's a kind of a diamond shape in there, but fairly large between probably East 902 Road and the new K10.
Right.
I can find what page if you need that.
So that would be on the east side of the curve
Yes.
toward the city. And the state of Kansas owns the ground that the highway will be on. They own the ground that the current highway is on. And just to point out, that's different from the county where we obtain easements for roadways. They actually purchase the ground outright. So they are the owners of that ground. When they move that road, they then have a large envelope of ground there, as you pointed out. It's bigger than normal in terms of leaving a remnant that is now not being used. There's another example of that at the Haskell interchange on the north side, where that fenced-in area has been left, and there's often questions about what's going to happen there. That's owned by the state of Kansas. I think they would like to liquidate that and allow it to be developed, or whatever the case may be. So with that kind of hindsight, when we were looking at the design of the curve on the traffic way, we did point out that they should put their access management limit, which is the fence line, pretty far over to the west, and leave that ground open so that it could be liquidated. And then it's going to come down to the state of Kansas deciding to do that. It may take some time, but it certainly is set up where that could be usable ground.
And would that, I guess we don't know whether that would then fall into the city of Lawrence or if it would come back to the county, because right now, is that county within the jurisdiction of the county, even though state owns it?
I don't think it's annexed. So, if the city grows west and annexes to the west, we would want them to annex the traffic way also. So at that point, it would be within the city limits. But KDOT, if they liquidate it, it would probably be private land ownership, unless we wanted to buy it for some reason, or the city.
Yeah, I think my main thought was, does that then become available for development? And the answer is possibly.
The answer is possibly, and that'll, again, come down to probably the Secretary of State's office making that decision. So at that point, it's tough to call.
I had another question from the same slide, and it's the East 875 Road, which is just a little cut through that goes from Bob Billings or 15th North 1500 down south to catch the access road that goes by the state park. The only thing I could think of for having kind of this redundant road is that intended for during the construction phase to carry some excess traffic? It seemed odd.
No, actually, that's a window to the future on developing further west. So if you look further south where Clinton Parkway wraps under the traffic way, there are several 3-in-a-row roundabouts. And then that heads north. So that first spur is basically Clinton Parkway continuing. And then that road that you referred to, there's a jog and then a road to the north. That's all being set up for city development. And that's in the city's portion of this agreement to pay for that.
That makes
And the
sense.
reason they've taken that is they want curb and gutter on that to be able to just go forward with development.
Commissioners, do you have any other questions? Okay, this is a public agenda item. Is there anyone in the public who would like to give public comment on this? Do we have anyone online? Okay, seeing nobody, I'll close public comment and bring it back to the commission to consider a motion.
This is Commissioner Reed. I move to let me get the right one. Execute a cooperative project agreement and a right-of-way turn-back agreement between the Kansas Department of Transportation and the City of Lawrence and Douglas County.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Motion passes. I think we also turn this back to Chad for the memorandum of understanding.
Yes, so the last item was for us to pay into KDOT's project, and this item is a memorandum of understanding that we are promising to build our own project with our own funds on Wakarusa Drive. And the reason for that is that the two in combination represent our local match for the Trafficway project. We learned 3 years ago or so that KDOT wanted to see a local match on projects of this size. And so between the city and the county, we're hitting about 10% of the cost. At that time, it's not hitting that now. Their costs have gone up. But they're still agreeing that somewhere around a total of 13 million is what they want to see. A large portion of that, most of that is, well, I'll say 60% of that is Wakarusa Drive. And the county has promised to build that road for that purpose. And this memorandum of understanding says we're going to build that road. It's going to connect from K10 to our county routes. It's going to provide access to the SLT. They also say that they want to see a rec path, a shared use path with that project. And so that is incorporated into our planning, and it will run on the west side most likely, so that it parallels the city leased park ground. And then we need to proceed with the project and get it built within a reasonable time frame. So this is all in line with the planning that we've done.
Chad, when you say they are expecting a shared use path, who is they?
The Secretary of Transportation.
Thank you. So they expect it to be there, but they're not paying for it?
Right, yeah. So the alternative would have been to, for the city and the county to just simply put cash into the SLT. And we said, well, you know, we're building this Wakarusa Drive project, and it's driven in large part by the fact that Castle was closed. And it really relates to the project, and they agreed with that.
And I know in an earlier meeting, when something similar had come up, and we talked about the timing between Wakarusa Road opening and Highway 56 project for KDOT, that project, and I think we thought that perhaps this project would predate the, come before the Highway 56, and just in terms of emergency vehicle access to the southwest corner of the county. Is that still what you hear from KDOT? I recognize they make their own choices in timing.
I haven't heard any promises for dates for Highway 56, so it will be out past any of this work. And I can give you an update. The current SLT project that's already bid is going to start this year in October, and that'll be from Highway 59 up around to Bob Billings. And then they're going to bid from there north next September of 2025.
Commissioners, do you have any further questions? Okay, I'll open this up to public comment. Is there anyone who'd like to make public comment on this item? Seeing none in the room, do we have anyone online? Okay, that closing public comment and bring it back up to the commission.
If no one has any other comments, I'll make a motion to approve a memorandum of understanding between Douglas County and Kansas Department of Transportation related to the expansion of South Lawrence Trafficway and the extension of Wakarusa Drive, County Route 5.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes. And that's the end of our regular agenda. Do we have any appointments for this evening?
I don't think any ready to make, just a growing list of open appointments. So if anybody's listening online or watches this later, check out the county's website for opportunities to join some boards and commissions.
And they can reach out to any one of us to answer some questions about that. So I agree. I've got some work here to do too.
Before we head on, Sarah, you have a couple on our memo of people who are eligible for reappointment. Is that correct?
Yeah, Andrew Spurlock and Chuck Folks are eligible for reappointment on the Building Code Appeals Board. It doesn't expire till December, but they are eligible for reappointment. And then also on the Community Corrections Advisory Board, Mark Matisse is eligible for reappointment, and Margaret Harris is as well.
I can reach out to Margaret Harris and Andrew Spurlock.
Okay, yeah.
Or,
Oh, go ahead.
yeah, I mean, do we know?
Folks have expressed interest in
There you
being
go.
reappointed, or they
An
wouldn't
important
be on this list.
Piece of information. Thank
Yeah,
you.
just wanted to
so
clarify.
these
Okay.
folks have expressed interest in being reappointed. So you're certainly welcome to talk to them, but I don't think we need to ask them if they don't. Yeah, and then I'd also say Bill DeWitt is eligible for reappointment on the Peasley Tech Board.
I'm comfortable, since we've appointed these people before, if they're interested in considering. I don't have any reservations about these appointments. That Mark is the one that I think probably is most pressing, since it's the end of August is when
Right.
his term is up. Commissioners, do you have any reservations about that without talking to Mark?
Not if he's expressed an interest in, I don't have any concerns.
I'll make a motion to appoint Mark Matisse to the Community Corrections Board.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. I would make a motion, well, I should first clarify. I'm happy to make a motion for Margaret Harris. Been very happy with her work. Okay, I would make a motion to reappoint Margaret Harris to the Social Services position of the Community Corrections Board.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Motion passes. Quentin Riles is not eligible for reappointment, it looks like. And I believe we have some possible people interested for the Fair Board for Willow Springs that I need to follow up.
And that won't be until January.
Yeah.
So, but also on the Senior Resource Board, there are 2 folks eligible for reappointment.
Yeah, I'd like to hold off on the Peasley Tech Board for just a little bit. I want to make sure Dr. DeWitt has done a fabulous job, and I'm sure he'll do the same at Eudora High School, which does impact the Peasley Tech Board. But I think because one of the things I really liked about having Dr. DeWitt on the Peasley Tech Board is he was the principal of the College and Career Center, which shares property. And so I'm happy to talk to Mark Pruitt, who's the new principal there, and to Dr. DeWitt, and just sort of figure out the best appointment there, if that's okay with commissioners, if we could hold off with that.
That's fine.
As far as the Senior Resource Center Board, do commissioners we've had some conversations about Senior Resource Center. I don't know that impacts their board so much, but are we ready to move ahead with those, or do we want to wait a little bit?
And I see that we have some time with those, so I don't think it's urgent, but also in terms of just as we have those conversations, if they have, stability in the board might not be a bad thing for kind of knowing that we'll have some same voices for the duration of that conversation is fine too. So I would go with whatever commissioners are happy with.
In case it's not obvious, and I'm leaning on the 2 of you a little bit because I did read all that in the packet, but some of the dates were kind of further out, so I wasn't clocking them for this week. I'm comfortable, as long as we have it confirmed, and I appreciate the clarification, Sarah, that when they're listed as eligible for reappointment, it has been confirmed that they are interested in that reappointment, not just eligibility. So,
Yes, because if not, we would say it is open,
yes, yep.
because they do not want
It's
to
just
serve.
point of clarification for anybody listening in the public, that's what we take that to mean. And so I'm comfortable with moving forward because we know that they're interested and that those conversations have already had, and it helps us shorten that list and focus on what we need to fill. But I'm going to rely on the two of you for names.
Well, I would make a motion for Patricia Nice for position 5 to be reappointed to the Senior Resource Board.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
And I'll make a motion for Mickey Dick to position 4 for Senior Resource Board.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. That
And
does-
before we move on from these, I want to encourage folks who are interested in the Property Crimes Compensation Board.
I actually have a name circulating
Good,
for
because
that. but
that's a very important board, I think, that we need to make sure we fill with someone who's very interested in doing that work.
I think we have interest. We're waiting on an application that actually goes to the DA before it comes to us. So, but I'm pretty happy with the name if we can follow through.
While we're on a roll, building codes.
And codes, yeah, coming back up to the
Where
top.
are we?
I'm going to make a motion to appoint Andrew Spurlock to the Building Codes Appeal Board.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you.
And this time I'm not going to, I'm actually going to do it as, I'll make a motion to appoint Chuck Foles to the Building Codes Appeals Board.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
All right.
And just a bit of clarification, I think I said Foles and it should be Folks, my fault about that.
And I very much appreciate people serving on these boards, and the Building Code of Appeals, an ever so fun one, but very necessary and needed. Okay, that is probably pretty good progress on appointments. I would give it back to Sarah for your weekly memo.
Thanks, Commissioners. My memo's in your packet. Just want to point out that I have found a stand-in canvasser for the primary election canvas. Register of Deeds Kent Brown will be willing to serve at that canvas on Monday, August 19th at 9 o'clock at the election office. Also, we've had a little bit of changes on upcoming work sessions. We've pushed out our conversation on the Judicial and Law Enforcement Center expansion to the 28th of August. So that means next week we do not have a 4 o'clock work session. But 21st, 28th, and the 4th, we're planning work sessions for those 3 dates. And that's all I have, Commissioners.
Commissioners, do you have any other topics?
No?
All right, with that, we are adjourned. Thank you, everyone.